So now there's a question here from Sam. The question here is, Reverend Ajahn, sometimes after a deep meditation, it happens that fits of anger, lust, and thoughts of rage arises. I switch to walking meditation and doing chores like cleaning. What would be some practical advice might you be able to give to respond to such feelings?
Well, number one, try to maintain your mindfulness. So you're fully aware of the feelings and you have to accept them, because it sounds like you've got some old karma there that's coming up, some accumulated anger, rage. You know, I don't know you, I don't know what your particular life has been like, but it sounds like you've got some accumulated anger and ill will there. So number one, be aware of the feelings as they arise. And if you can, maintain the mindfulness just at the level of the feeling. So like you say, it's a good thing to do some walking meditation and just try to be mindful with the feeling as it comes up, how it manifests in your body. And you may find that as you're mindful, that's as far as it goes. It's just you're with the feeling and it will gradually fade. Because you're mindful, you have some self-control, you're not letting it spill out into your thinking or actions. But obviously, you want to guide your mindfulness with compassion for yourself at that time. You recognize you're angry, you're suffering, but try to just be aware of the feeling as a feeling. If your mindfulness slips, which it will from time to time, unfortunately, if we're not perfect in our mindfulness, you'll start to proliferate in negative ways and maybe think about the issues that are associated with your feelings of anger and rage, maybe visual images, maybe thoughts. Well, try to also just contemplate the impermanence of those thoughts, not to give them too much importance, just accept where you've got anger, there's these issues, maybe it's memories have been triggered, accept them, but again, try not to feed those negative thoughts. If you can, start to use some wisdom, reflect on them, bring up a way of thinking that will start to turn your mind to something better than just sticking with the negativity and the aversion to yourself or others or whatever the situation is. Try to turn your mind to think of something more skillful. So it's replacement. You're trying to replace that thinking with something better. That's often a very good way to go. So mindfulness, and then bringing up some skillful reflection. You can think of the Buddha or a teacher. Sometimes that helps us to deal with anger. You can reflect on the suffering of holding on to your anger and the benefits of letting it go, accepting whatever's happened. Say, if something's happened that makes you angry when you think of it, you may reflect, well, it's already happened. My angry thoughts are not making it any better, and they're not going to change the situation. They're actually making it worse. Therefore, I should let go of these angry thoughts. If you can, steer your mind to think of something positive, something good. So even in the situation that has brought up anger, that something has gone wrong, something bad has happened, see if you can see the good in it. Have you learned a lesson from it? Has it given you some information, some lesson that can help you in the future? Or just the fact that it's over. If whatever has brought you anger is over now, it's finished. They've said their words, that thing has happened, the mistake has been made. Just reflect, well, it's over now, at least I can move on. So try to introduce some wisdom, some compassion to your thinking so that you take your mind away from the anger. If you can do that, then each time anger arises, it will get easier. You'll get better at doing it.
Thank you, Ajahn. But being humans, sometimes you can't help but feel indignation. You can't help feeling aggrieved of injustice. And it is sometimes difficult to just pause and walk away from that sense of rage, that sense of indignation. What can one do?
Well, you have to see the unskillfulness of your indignation. It's not that you're judging yourself as bad for having indignation, but just see it's not going to help you solve the problem or improve your world or the world around you. If you're coming from anger, your thoughts are negative, they're unskillful, it always leads on to some kind of harm or destruction. So you have to see that. And it doesn't mean to say you go to indifference and you don't care about injustices and what's going on in your life or the world around you. But you're seeing the best way to deal with problems is from a place of mindfulness and a mind that is working well. And when it's angry, it's not working well. Yeah, it's like when you have a car, you want to drive places, you want your engine to work well, then you can get to where you need to go. You want to be able to bring your mind back from anger, set the anger aside, and then address the problem from a place of feeling normal, so you can really think things through and see what you can do to improve things. If there's some injustice somewhere, well, what can you do in that situation? Anger will tend to push people away. If you're engaging with people, it'll tend to make you tense, drains you, means you can't think straight and can't think well and skillfully. And it tends to be very destructive for ourselves and other people that are around us. So what you have to see is letting go of anger is not indifference. It's simply letting go of a mental defilement so that your mind can work better. And then if you do have problems to address things that need to be done, you can do it better.
Thank you. Sadhu Thanajan. Anyone? Anyone's got a question? Second question? If you don't have a question and you have a feedback, you like to just express something to Thanajan, feel free to click on the raise hand button as well, or to tell us where you're from. I see that we've got friends from, other than from Australia, we have friends from China as well. It also, helps Thanajan know where people are tuning in from and where the Dhamma is spreading far and wide. Perhaps maybe if I can invite our friend from China, Yang. Yang, I see you often here on screen. Yes, could you perhaps provide a few comments, please?
Dear Thanajan, dear Dhamma friends, I think today's topic about Kaya Anupassana, how you can meditate on the body, this is something personally I don't try that much, but I know for the beginning of the Sangha, they spend a lot of time meditating on this object because it's contemplating, it's a lot of effort, in creative effort. As you explain, go to paws and then skins and teeth. And it seems there's a lot of things to work on that. But I think it's good. And for the 4 element thing is quite new for me as well. So I want use this teaching today and then bring it more in my personal reflection on the earth, fire, maybe water, just play around with it and try it out. So thank you for this new thing, this new element in the lot of teachings you already kindly shared. So that's all I can I want to say. Thank you, Thanajan.
I wish you well. Just keep working at it. Contemplation of the body is a lifetime's work. It's not something we can do in one session and then we know it and move on to other things. It's a lifetime's work because people find it difficult. Their minds don't want to stay with the body. When we meditate, we love to be with the breath or be with a state of calm. We like to have thoughts of compassion, all kinds of good stuff, but staying with the body, people find it difficult. It's hard work. The mind recoils. It comes away. When we put effort into contemplating the body, we can do it for a few minutes and then we move away. We don't want to stay. That's why it's so rewarding, but it's something you have to keep coming back to. And as I said, over a whole lifetime. And you can do it in little ways at first. If you're finding it in a meditation period, it's very difficult to stay with contemplating your body. Just start picking it up in your daily life. Like when you have to wash your clothes, you notice, this body makes clothes dirty. When you go to the toilet, obviously you're seeing the unattractive side of food you've digested coming out in the toilet. When you have a bath, you're noticing, you're showering, you're noticing your body gets smelly, gets greasy. When you look in the mirror, you notice how wrinkles come, gray hairs come, all things change in your body. Just in small ways like this, and in other people as well. Say you have a friend like this, people you haven't seen for 2 years because of COVID or something, and then you see them, and you're thinking how old they look. You don't have to tell them that because they may get upset, but you just notice yourself. You say, oh, they're aging. That's what happens to human bodies. People age, men age, women age. We try to hide it. We don't like to admit it, but just notice these things. You're just witnessing the way a human body is, little by little, absorbing that into your consciousness. And then your consciousness will accept these truths much easier over time, over a lifetime of contemplation. So when the time comes that your body has problems, you're getting old, you get sick, you're facing death, you understand already that's just the nature of it. And it doesn't bring up fear or worry. You just know, oh, that's the way it is. It's peaceful.
Thank you, Ajahn. So there's a question here with regards to some instructions on dealing with what's happening in Ukraine. So to the person who's asking this question, this person is saying that no Buddhist leaders have so far expressed any views regarding the situation in Ukraine. I think this person may not be informed, but just to turn Ajahn here, what would be a good Buddhist response to the killing and suffering in Ukraine? Perhaps if it's appropriate, Ajahn would like to share some comments, please.
Well, the simple answer is stop. Stop doing it. Stop fighting. Stop sending in the weapons and the troops. Stop. But of course, they're not stopping, are they? So you'd encourage them to seek negotiations for peace as quickly as possible so that less people die and there's less destruction. But even that you may not achieve yet. Unfortunately, the way wars go is that they tend to run a course. So even if everyone is saying, let's talk, let's have peace, negotiate, one side or perhaps both sides are so heated up, they just want to destroy, and that's not finished yet. That's the karma of it. Because as soon as war starts, then people's normal way of thinking goes out the window and they become very angry because so many people are being hurt and dying and they're seeing destruction everywhere. It's very difficult to stop it just like that. But that's what we want, isn't it? We want it to stop. We want people to stop, come and talk, find some kind of solution, negotiated solution to it. That would be my suggestion. But nobody's listening to me, unfortunately. And I don't think they're going to listen to any Buddhist monks anywhere in the world, but that would be the Buddhist response, isn't it? You don't fight, stop, talk about it, see if you can find some kind of compromise, settlement. And it's the same, this is just one war. It happens to be the current war that's on everybody's lips because it's in the news, but there's, other conflicts in the world. There have been in the past, it's always the same thing. How can we get to the point where they finally stop? That's what we want. When I was a kid, I was brought up in the UK. I'm not from Northern Ireland, but I had friends living in Northern Ireland, and you probably know for many, many years they had conflict there. People were hurting each other, killing each other. It was so sad, and people would come over, and occasionally there were bombs even in London where I live. There was a bomb down the road from my house. I remember when I was a kid, there was a bomb, and a guy was blown up in his car, getting into his car. It's so sad that all you want is for people to see the harm of what they're doing so that they stop the violence and then start talking. And you want to get back to that point where they can talk again. And say in Northern Ireland, finally they got to a point where people were so tired of the violence, they did agree to talk. And you know, it's never perfect, but they had an agreement, they had a settlement, and some majority of the violence ceases at that point. And that's what every war comes to, a point, you know, when you have some kind of settlement, and you want that point to be reached quickly. So encourage all your politicians to encourage the sides of this war, Ukraine, Russia, to talk, to get to a negotiated settlement as quickly as possible, so less people are dying, there's less destruction.
Thank you, Ajahn. I know we're coming up to time now. Would you be able to take just one last question?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, right. So this question, is from Amala. Long Paul, in reverse dependent origination, it says that with the cessation of six senses, contact ceases. The question, how can six senses cease when we feel all the time?
The six senses cease when there's no more birth. So if you're not born, then you don't have your senses anymore. You don't have name and form, mind and body anymore. And that's the whole point of the Buddhist path. Nibbana is the deathless, the birthless, the deathless, the end of birth. So while you're alive, of course, you've got six senses giving you sense contact, and with sense contact you get vedana, you get pleasure and pain through your senses. The idea is to have enough mindfulness for that not to create craving and attachment. So really the place that where you're stopping birth is at your senses, at sense contact. You see, but you don't allow it to create craving. So you're not allowing rebirth at that point. So you see that delicious looking food, but you don't let craving take over your mind. You don't get born into the food, into the craving. So you use senses. Your senses are your teachers. Your senses are teaching you all the time. So you need mindfulness to get the lesson from them. If there's no mindfulness and no reflective wisdom, as sense contact takes place, you can't learn the lesson you need to learn. So it's no different from when you were at school, when you were a little kid and you were sitting there talking to your friend and your teacher was getting annoyed because you're not listening to what they're saying. It's exactly the same. We're not mindful when we have sense contact, so we don't learn the lesson we need to learn. The lesson we need to learn is that if we give in to craving, that craving comes up as sense desire, so desire, attraction, or aversion, ill will, craving, or craving for becoming. We want more, we want better, we want bigger. If we allow our mind to go into craving, we suffer. It creates suffering, discontent, and it leads on to unskillful action, including wars, including arguments, including all the problems of the world. If we can be mindful at the moment of sense contact, we can learn the lesson we need to learn, which is that craving leads to suffering. Therefore, don't give in to craving. Let it drop. Let your craving just drop there on the floor right at that moment. And little by little, you're undermining the causes for future birth. So if the Buddha said, if you do that really well, you're really mindful all the time, at most you'll suffer and you suffer with a mind of suffering for 7 more days, and then you reach enlightenment, or 7 more months, or 7 more years, or perhaps 7 more lifetimes. This is what we're aiming for, maintaining mindfulness, cutting off craving and attachment, and you're gradually reducing the causes for more birth or rebirth.
Thank you, Thanajan. But just one tiny last half a question in a follow-up. That is when we become more mindful and when we are deep in our practice, there are occasions that we become more withdrawn as we start to practice letting go. How do we respond to others who find our behavior different from before? How do we respond to them? By our actions of indifference.
With compassion. You understand why they are not satisfied with our behavior, because they are thinking on a different level. Maybe they're still more worldly, so they want to be more sociable, engage in more, we might feel frivolous or pointless activities. So you have compassion for them, you understand where they're coming from, but that doesn't mean to say you give up your practice. It's just you have to adjust. And every practitioner will have to go through this. There'll be some of their friends will drop away because you simply can't spend your time with people who still want to drink and party and socialize and endlessly talk about making money and competing and comparing and jealous and this and that. You'll find, unfortunately, that some of your friends you'll gradually distance from them because they're not interested in Dhamma practice. But then you'll also make new friends of people who are interested in Dhamma practice. And so there's always this adjustment going on. But just respond to people with compassion. If they don't understand what you're doing, never mind, as long as you're doing good things, which Dhamma practice only leads us to do. You don't have to doubt what you're doing, and you just accept that they don't yet have the same values, the same interests as you. So they may spend less time with you, or they may not see eye to eye with you. But if you have compassion, you're not going to argue with them or fight with them. You just accept that that's just the way they are.
Thank you, Thanajan. That's the last question.
Like when I started practicing meditation, probably 50% of my friends said, "Oh, you're so boring now." You just laugh and say, "Yeah, okay, I'm boring, but I'm peaceful." Sorry, were we ending there? Sorry, I'm finished.
Thank you so much, Long Paul.